Good morning, hello, and welcome everybody. We are here to talk today about empowering high-performance sports organisations. My name is Lloyd. I represent a company called Global Sports, and we are the leading provider to the international sports industry, providing sort of services focused around people. Every year we deliver the People Agenda Survey, where we identify and discuss key topics and issues facing our industry. And some of the topics we are focusing on today are priority topics for the People Agenda in 2021. I think it's fair to say that the global pandemic has put HR at centre stage, as this is a human crisis. It's clearly recognised that the Chief People Officer role within organisations has had to step up in the same way that the Chief Financial Officer had to in the global financial crisis in 2008. We have a clear leadership responsibility to lead us through this crisis with a focus on people. Today, we discuss some of these key topics facing organizations across our industry and discuss how they are approaching them to create high-performing teams. We only have 30 minutes, so we have to be reasonably short and sharp to get through this session. But with that in mind, I'd like to thank you and introduce my three fantastic international panelists that will be here today talking to us about their experiences and their thoughts from both within and outside of the industry. First of all, Sarah Brookes, who is Chief People Officer at Formula E. Welcome, Sarah. We'll come back to you very shortly. We have Florian, Senior HR Business Partner at UEFA, based in Switzerland, and Vivi, who is the Chief People Officer at SPORTFIVE in Germany. Good morning and welcome to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for the invite, Will.
Well, here we are, finally. So if we're going to kick off straight away, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to ask you, Sarah, for the first question. And from your experiences, both from within and outside the industry, and it may be a good idea just to give people a view of your external experiences, but what do you think creates a high-performing team?
Thank you, Will. I'm an HR practitioner, born and bred, so I've been in HR for about 25 years, and not just in sports, but also in hospitality and leisure organisations. So kind of seen quite a lot, particularly in highly focused commercial and consumer businesses. So in terms of high performance, this is a really interesting one, and I've tried to narrow it down, and I just can't, because there are so many different aspects, all kind of coming in at exactly the same time and exactly the same way to create this really, really high performing team. So from my point of view, it really is driven from several streams. First, I think purpose. So purpose is absolutely fundamental, and not only having a solid purpose, but everyone understanding and buying into what that purpose is. And at Formula E, we very much do have a sense of purpose, an accelerating kind of sustainable human progress. The second for me is around making sure you've got a set of goals that are really clearly shared and really understood. So what is it that we're trying to achieve? And then how do we go about achieving that? So what is important to us as a team of people in terms of our behavior in achieving those goals and meeting that purpose? And then anything else kind of comes in around that. So the ability to make sure that we are constantly developing and growing our team to be able to deliver, whether that's in terms of skills or capabilities. But ultimately, it's really around that sense of purpose, goal, and how we go about achieving that, in my mind.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Very interesting. There's a few points I'd like to come back to shortly on there. Florian,
yes.
With your experiences in mind, what do you think, from a UEFA perspective, creates a high-performing team?
Thank you, Will. There are probably several good answers to that topic. One was given by Sarah. I think it was a good overview around the purpose. I think I wanted, when I thought about something like that, I wanted to link it to the topic of the three topics of today: ED&I, learning and development, and health and well-being. And I thought these three topics obviously are very interconnected. And I think as an organization, as a sport organization, you need to create an environment that supports the three pillars. You need to have a plan. You need to have people in charge of these three pillars, and create initiatives around these topics. You need to have a clear goal on what you want to do, because it won't happen by magic. It needs to be looked after, and you have to have someone in charge of these topics. That's one element I would see as an answer to your question, Will.
Fantastic. Thank you, Florian. I think it's a very valid point there. I think there's a lot of discussions around the topics that we've highlighted today, and certainly bringing in purpose and goals. But how actionable have they been over the last period in terms of turning organizations into high-performing teams, but also addressing some of the key issues around workforce within organizations? Vivi, over to you in terms of your experiences. Your world, SPORTFIVE, is a relatively new world, or reincarnated world. What do you think? You've probably got a slightly more blank piece of paper in terms of creating high-performing teams within your organization. Share with me what your thoughts are on how to create that high-performing team.
Thanks, Will. I agree with all of what was said before, but I think the people are the most important part. So this is the main capital of every high-performing organization, and this is also the reason why I, starting my career in the digital media sales and being responsible for a sales team, and then transformed into people and organizational development, because I think it's very important for an organization how we work together and how we actually develop our people. And so finding the right team members is important. This also includes to have a diverse team, a topic for today, and to not only a diverse team in gender and sexuality and all those, also diverse in different backgrounds, to bring different ideas on the table and discuss things from different perspectives. And therefore, the team dynamic is also an important part. And for that, the team members must understand and agree to a common vision, the team objectives and goals. And they also should be able to give constructive feedback to manage conflicts and things like that. So I think this requires also skills like, or values like, trust, constructive feedback, commitment, and accountability to have a high-performing team.
Interesting. Thank you, Vivi. Very interesting to understand. And from a cultural perspective, Vivi, you've got multiple offices. Florian, you've got 52. I think it's 52 different stakeholders that you cover.
55.
Sorry, 55. I beg your pardon. And Sarah, you've clearly got an international platform. How does that, Vivi, going back to you, how does that change, or how do you manage that from an international perspective or different cultural perspective?
Yeah, of course, the different offices, different cultures, but also each team has a team culture is special, and to understand that and but therefore what Sarah said, the purpose is important, that we all have the same understanding in the organization, that we understand that we have individual characters, and but also that we have a common goal and to achieve something together as a team.
Okay, and Florian, you have quite a considerable variety of nationalities within your organisation. How challenging is it to work with multi-languages and multi-cultures within UEFA, to bring them together to deliver against a common purpose and a common vision?
Yeah, it's true. We have around 50 nationalities, I think. And in terms of language, it's pretty simple. You narrow down to one language, which is English, which makes things much easier. So that's kind of solved. It forces all the non-English speakers to increase a little bit their level. But it's more about the culture. I think that's the main challenges. And I'm not sure how much you decide on the culture as an organization. It's probably the people that are, and then I can join Vivi on that point. It's probably the people inside your organization that would sort of create the result of your culture in the end. And as we see it at UEFA, there is a certain culture. There's no doubt about it. But when we create local organizing committees with our Euros, they are in 12 different countries. But before, there was one in France, and you start creating this organization or local entity from scratch with the number one employee, and then you add other employees, end up with 500. And you realize that very quickly there is a natural culture that is being created without any input from the organization. You don't necessarily have guidelines on what culture to implement. It comes from the people that form the team, and it comes from the leaders first, probably, and the leading characters that have not necessarily a leading position, but that have a personality that have a lot of impact on the team and on the working environment. So yes, it's a challenge, but I don't think it's a massive challenge. I mean, when you have bright people working together, even if they come from different cultures, it works.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. To move the conversation on slightly, you're relatively new to the sports industry, having come from peripheral industry, so your transferable skills were probably quite relatively straightforward. But I think it's fair to say you've mentioned in the past to me that the diversity of the sports industry is very weak. That there's a lot of sort of white middle class males in this marketplace, and there is a need across the industry as a whole to get greater diversity, greater equality and inclusion. What is from your experiences working outside of the market and looking at it in the eyes that you do now, what are the sort of critical factors for you around ED&I, or equality, diversity and inclusion, that create or help develop a high performing team?
Yeah, super question, Will. So first and foremost, you know, there is parts of this that to me are just a no-brainer, and whether that and it's customer, it goes to customer. So whether that's a fan, you know, whether it's a partner in the sports industry, or whether it's a visitor in a kind of an attractions industry, all of our customers are different. They are extremely diverse, and you may have kind of, I don't even dare want to say it, you know, you may have more men that have typically been involved with football, but that's very much changing and what have you. So that's the first thing, I think, which is one of the major reasons as to why diversity and inclusivity is crucial, because we need to think like our customers to be commercially successful. and to deliver in that respect. The other elements, I think, which make it an absolute no-brainer is a lot about what we've been talking about here around high performance and that sense of purpose, that sense of goals, and people. And really how you get the best from people is when they can bring their authentic self to an organization, when they feel that there are high levels of psychological safety to be who they are. And to be able to be who you are is diversity. You know, it is bringing a sense of whatever you are, whoever you are, whatever your walk of life, you are included into this business. And arguably inclusivity will then lead to a sense of diversity. So for me, you know, industries aside, we all have a purpose to deliver whether it's a product, whether it's a property, whether it's an experience to our customers and you know, fans and partners. And with that comes the need to think differently and bring different ideas, different perspectives. And that comes from, you know, the glory of everyone being different and embracing inclusivity.
Sarah, that very eloquently put, and thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. I think it's clear, you know, that, as I said earlier, that diversity is a big challenge in our marketplace, and it's not just in football or in motor racing. It is everywhere. Clearly, changing that is one thing, but how are we measuring that, or how are you measuring that impact of change, or how do you anticipate to be measuring that impact of change? Because I think there's a lot of organizations that say diversity is really important, but then as we go back to what we were saying earlier, how actionable is it, and how actionable is it becoming, and subsequently how is it being measured to justify or to prove that change?
Again, a great question, and I'm fairly new to the business, so I don't want to sidestep it. There are some key areas which we need to focus on and change, move the dial on, both in terms of, you know, internally and externally. I think it comes in multiple guises. So it's not about, you know, being here and kind of criticizing the middle-aged, middle-class white male. I mean, this kind of goes back into just history, to some degree, thousands of years of history. And it's not about just creating a place for people around the table. It's enabling them to be themselves whilst they're sat around the table and bring their diverse approach or set ways of thinking or diverse ways of thinking to that. So I think it's about changing some of those metrics, some of those dials that say we need, you know, more, I don't know, women or minority groups, you know, at senior leadership level. There are those, but also it's about instilling the confidence in individuals to, when they're sat around the table, feel that they could contribute. So there is a whole set that we need to really look at in respect of measuring that, to know that we've achieved what we're set out to do. Makes sense.
I'm conscious of time. I'm just going to move the topic on. I mean, we've health and well-being, given the pandemic, has clearly been promoted to priority status above everything else during this crisis, and I think it's quite rightly so. Florian, from your experiences, particularly within UEFA, what challenges and initiatives have been instigated by or through UEFA in terms of health and well-being to support your staff?
Obviously it's impacted us a lot, the pandemic, as you know, especially on our competitions. Luckily, I would say we implemented back in 2014 a program that is called I Care About My Health, where we had a yearly plan of initiatives that we would launch around health and well-being. And over the years, this plan has grown. So we had already a lot of things that were in the pipeline regarding wealth and well-being and health. But unfortunately, they had to be cut and turn into something more digital at first, because everybody was sent home. So probably the first challenge was to turn these initiatives that were like workshops or trainings whatsoever in physical trainings to turn them into something that is digital and where people could also learn from home remotely. But we had to put some more focus on what it means to be in this pandemic around probably the first one was mental health, where we thought that we would need to have to do something there, whether it's burnout, it's over workload or anxiety because of the pandemic. We know that some of our staff are more subject to being affected by working remotely. So we had to put something in place, and we currently just launched I think a very good program regarding burnout and chronic stress, but it's dedicated to our people manager, because we want to focus on them to be the ones on the field to be close to our staff and be the first one to help. We have other things in place, like a helpline where people can call and talk about that. But that was the main initiative.
And how's this helping you to develop high performing? How are these changes helping you to develop high performing teams?
I think when you have well-being, when your team is healthy mentally and physically, they can perform. It tends to be a very performing team, and only then you can have a happy team. I would say simply that they are in good shape.
Making sure that they're focused on their work and their team. I think it's a very fair point. I think one of the, just to sort of open this up, and we've had a few questions that have come in. And this may probably lead to a question I would like to ask Vivi around sort of learning and development. But one of the questions that has arisen is, what kind of leaders and persons in the sports industry need, what kind of leaders does the sports industry need today to keep performing and making a global impact and change on our world? So what kind of people, I'll just get that, what kind of leaders does the sports industry need today to keep performing and making a global impact and change on our world? There's elements there, Vivi, which is sort of takes us on to our next point, which is learning and development. But what are your thoughts on that? What sorts of leaders does the industry need today to keep performing and making a global impact?
Good question.
Yes.
Yeah, and because I think it's a lot of what we've already have said, to set goals, to have a vision. Where do we want to form a team, to be inclusive, and to make sure that we foster a culture that supports the team and supports a performing team. And those are different skills. It's more the leader as a coach and an enabler, rather than to be the expert and the one with the most knowledge in the room. It's more to how can I help and support the team so that we have not only a top-down, also bottom-up approach, and to bring new ideas into the company and to support, to be innovative and create new products.
Yeah.
Does it answer your question? I hope.
I think it's a start. I think we could go on. Yeah, all of these questions and the topic as a whole is worthy of a day, if not a week. So I don't think we're going to go too deep. But I think, one of the things that this pandemic has reportedly done is expedite the future of work by sort of 5 to 10 years. And I don't think anyone was expecting that. The learning and development function, particularly online, has catapulted itself into the forefront, and organizations quite understandably are beginning to address the development of their staff through online learning. Just share with me sort of some of the stuff that SPORTFIVE have been doing. I mean, it's a relatively new company in its current guise. So just sort of what are your thoughts on how best to utilize those tools to develop the best learning and development scenario for your staff?
Yeah, first, we had a rebranding. So SPORTFIVE is a player in the sports industry for over 25 years, and but we just recently last year had a rebranding to SPORTFIVE, just that. And but as you said, yeah, the pandemic is an example of how fast our business can change, and what we can see, but we already saw in the last couple of years, and in the last year with the pandemic really increased, is the digital transformation. So that we have also this panel here via Zoom, and in all areas of the workplace, the digital transformation is something that really increased in the last couple of months. And because you asked me about leadership, last year we switched all our trainings to online trainings, and the first one was remote leadership, because you're not able to interact with your team face to face. You have to manage your team remote, and so that was the first thing that we implemented. And we currently also working on how can we change our training program, and we just recently launched our SPORTFIVE campus. So we wanted to bring all areas of learning and development in one place, and we have 3 pillars. First is insight and inspiration. It's about providing knowledge on and beyond our business to bring new ideas and insight into our organization. Therefore, we invite external speakers. For example, 2 weeks ago, we had David Dallaire, who talked about PVC sports study. And but also we have employees giving an overview about current market trends, which are important for our business as well. And the second pillar is skill education with our general training program for soft skills and special training. And the third one is focused really on our sales organization, on our sales team, with where we developed a program just for the sales team, and that we have all on one place, so that the employees and everybody and the manager can see and decide which one is now important for me. And maybe also we have one topic in all different areas. For example, esports is a business which is up and coming and in the last couple of years, and maybe we have a part in insights and inspiration. How's the market evolving, and how can we participate with esports, but also for our sales team, what is really relevant if you're doing sponsoring, if you talk with brands about sponsoring in esports, because it's different than in the if you do general sports sponsoring. So yeah, those are the things we are working on. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. And I'd love to find out a little bit more about how that is influencing the ability to attract new talent from a diversity perspective. But unfortunately, I think we're going to run out of time. The key. So just to sort of wrap up before we ask a few other questions that seem to be coming in rather fast and furiously. Sarah, 2021, we're at the beginning of 2021. We're not quite sure how it's going to pan out. Hopefully, it's going to be better than last year. What for you is the sort of key focus around HR, or the one key focus for you in HR to achieve in 2021?
Well, that's a difficult question to ask, but the first thing that springs to mind, and I'd love to take you down the route that says, embedding culture, or, very much about driving diversity and inclusivity, and it is all of those things. But ultimately, I think it's going to be getting through the first half of the year safely, securely for all of our team, all in one piece, and being able to deliver, a good product, again, in what is seemingly remaining quite a very difficult, probably the most difficult landscape that we've had to operate in, certainly since I've been in HR.
Yeah, good answer, and I think it just puts everything into perspective. But clearly, we've covered some very good ground around what constitutes a high-performing team. But if there's no people, there's no team. So that's got to be the first and foremost to look after. Florian, from your perspective, is there bearing in mind what Sarah has just said, which is probably clearly the trump card, is there anything that you and your organisation are trying to focus on in 2021 over and above what Sarah said?
Yeah, surely, but I would say pretty much the same. Our first milestone is half of the year, just after Euro. That's the big milestone for us. We want, in terms of HR, we want our staff to be healthy, safe, sane until at least then. We want them to be. They work a lot. I mean, most of them. It's a massive impact on our organization. What it means to reorganize the Euro under the pandemic, very dependent on 12 countries' decisions over their own situation regarding the pandemic. So it's a massive impact on the workload, obviously. So, and it's still 4 months to go. So it's a long journey still. So if they can be in good shape after the final whistle, that would be already a good achievement for us.
Fair enough. Good answer. Vivi, for you, clearly people looking at the health and well-being of their people is paramount. But anything else that you're striving to achieve as an objective for 2021?
Yeah, for sure, all of the 3 areas that we discussed today, but in specific, the people, and therefore we want to implement more personal development plans, not only offering a training guide. It's more to support our employees to shape their own personal development together with the manager and the people team, so that you have a plan over the next 12 months or 18 months, and to have topics that you would like to work on and what you want to achieve, and that you have your individual development plan. Yeah. So that's the one of our focus topics, besides the other ones that we discussed.
Fair enough. Look, we've probably got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want a minute just to wrap up, but some of the questions that are coming fast and furiously are flat organizations, i.e. with less hierarchy, a good indicator of a high-performing organization? I'm going to throw that open to anybody that would like to answer that. So are flat organizations a good indicator of a high-performing organization in your experience?
Wow, what a super question. It's getting me thinking, and I'll probably reflect on this when we've jumped off. I think what's important is not necessarily the depth of the hierarchy, but how effective that hierarchy is. If it's clunky, if it's bureaucratic, if it's littered with people that can't make kind of agile decisions, if it's very autocratic, then I think all of those erode high performance. So yes, it can be deep, because you do need to consider kind of the size of the organization, spans of control, etc., and all of those other technical elements. But ultimately, it can still be very high performing.
Fair enough. another question that's come in, which is, how do you see autonomy playing a part in creating a high-performing team? Vivi or Florian, have you have a thought on that? How do you see autonomy playing a part in creating a high-performing team?
I think autonomy is probably linked to empowering and giving more responsibility to your teams and leaders throughout the hierarchy, if it's not yet flat. Equally, I think the fact that we had to work and change work and work remotely, but then you don't have the choice. You're not we used to see in the old days. You have your manager behind your back checking what you're currently doing. You turn up in the office at the right time and you leave not before 6 in the evening, and that's how you can check the work now. Managers, and that's why they need to be trained as well. They have to trust the people, but it comes also to each individual to be responsible, to be autonomous, to be their own manager. And so there has been a shift in the way we need to work, and autonomy is exactly that. Is the blend of working alone at home and still make connections with your colleagues, socializing. How it depends on everyone, but the autonomy and responsibility and empowerment basically it's all linked and connected, and it's a must nowadays with what we're living.
Good answer. Vivi, did you have a thought on that, or?
Yeah, I just thought it always needs a balance in everything. So it's good to have the autonomy, and but if you only have autonomy and it's not the common goal that we want to achieve, then it's also not the best thing. So you always have to balance both, and so that's the only thing that I wanted to add.
No, that's fair enough. Look, thank you all three of you very much indeed. It's a topic that we could go on for days just on the individual aspects of it, let alone the topic as a whole, and it's opening up all sorts of additional questions that quite rightly we need to discuss and resolve and see where we can get to. But we've only had half an hour, or in fact actually a bit longer than that now, and I would say that I think it has been fascinating, or we've certainly started to open up this subject. The concept of purpose and goals, it seems to have been repeated around the importance of those in developing high-performing teams, and the elements of equality, diversity, inclusion, health and well-being, and learning and development are key facets of those teams, as well as the purpose and those goals, to make sure we can create the performance from the teams that we want. And I think most importantly is actionable. So not just playing lip service, which I think has happened in the past, but actually making sure that even if it's one goal or one purpose to those goals support, that we can actually make that happen. Thank you all very much indeed for your time. I'm sorry that we have run out of time. I'm sorry that we have gone over it a bit, but I hope that's all been beneficial for those that have been watching. And again, thank you very much for the panelists.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.